Hi there. My name is John Stevens. I'm pastor of Zion Lutheran Church in Oregon City, Oregon, and we are part of the ELCA. And welcome to Dollar Store Children's Sermons, where we take a look at the lectionary text, time to an item from the Dollar Tree or the junk drawer or the kids' room or the garage. You know how we've been doing it. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of your week with me in this way. And thank you for the love that you're sharing to your kids and with your congregations and with your families. You are rocking it, my friends. Thank you so much. This is for Transfiguration Sunday, and we are doing both the Revised Common Lectionary and the Narrative Lectionary together because this is one of the Sundays where the texts match up. And not only that, but I'm excited because this is one of the texts that we workshopped at the extravaganza, at the E. And I had so much fun, and I was so glad to see so many of you. And we had some gems pulled out of this text, and some that I'll lift up, and there was just so much. You know, when you get a room full of creative and created human beings, and the Spirit moves within, oh man, it was great. So, springboards galore. So there are two that I'm looking at that I'm going with. One is in one of the workshops, one person lifted up that they like getting the kids moving, and that's an amazing thing when you can get the kids moving in the sanctuary. It's one of the reasons why I love the Epiphany children's sermon that I highlighted, and that's doing a star tour where you can walk all around the sanctuary. So this springboard was if in your sanctuary, and even if you don't have even if you don't have this, you can still there's ideas around it. So we in our sanctuary, and I was actually going to film it, but our lighting is really weird. It's not weird, but it's really hard to actually videotape really well because I get streaks and anyway. You have steps up to the altar. You have steps up to the rail, and we actually serve communion at the bottom of the stairs because we have steps everywhere in our church, and trying to make it equitable and for all to come to the table, we move communion down to the bottom of the stairs. But you can use that as the mountain. As they were headed up the mountain, the text says, and the idea was thrown out there was to tie a rope or put a rope at the top. Maybe tie a rope around the railing and making sure that you're the first one going up so it doesn't get pulled too hard. I tell you what, you get a 2 or a 3-year-old, there's strength that you don't know about. The Hulk is inside, ready to get out of her. Anyway, so you've got that, and to just as you're doing that, do the wonder question, that godly play question. I wonder what these three that were set aside, that they climbed up, and when they were climbing up the mountain, high mountain, when they were climbing up there, I wonder what was going through their minds, and working the text that way as you wonder these wonder questions. But actually having that as the way to literally and metaphorically enter into the text as you're climbing up the mountain. Now, if you don't have steps, one of the things you could do is you could run a rope down the center aisle and have the rope at the communion table, because you are climbing up and you will see Christ. So you could talk about places in the sanctuary, almost like the Star Tour, but places in the sanctuary that you find Jesus, or Jesus finds us. That's more to the point, that Jesus finds us, that you're using that rope and you're all taking it. One of the things, if your kids are in kindergarten or preschool, that you might walk around the sanctuary using the climbing rope, but you could do it as in, so sometimes in Vacation Bible School or in preschool or kindergarten, when you were taking a field trip, let's say you're going around the block, or you're going down to the park. One of the ways they'll do it is they'll take a rope and they'll tie knots along the rope, and that gives kids something to hold on to. Maybe get a piece of rope and tie that on, and you're holding on to it, and you walk around the sanctuary, climbing the mountain. And then this idea that this rope is something we hold on to, but then the question is, who holds on to us? And ultimately, when they're up on the mountain and they hear the voice and they hears, "This is my son," and we know that Jesus holds on to us. So this using that rope in many different directions. So that's the first springboard. The other is, so when we workshop the text and when I was talking about kind of my process at the extravaganza, is I talk about don't be afraid of going outside. And by that I meant not going outside literally, but by going outside the text. That there are times where we want to look at, maybe pay attention to the color of the church year, or today we're going to talk about the waters of baptism because it's always there. But this is another way of going outside the text. So we're in the year of Mark, so we hear this story in Mark, but in other stories, we get another glimpse at what's going on. And I like it because in one of the other stories, I haven't lifted it up, I think it's Luke, but I'll have to look it up. But in the text, when the disciples are face down and they are afraid, and we're dealing with that being afraid, they are afraid, Jesus reaches down and touches them. And that's when they know that it's Jesus, it's only Jesus now. But this idea that God touches them, that Christ, God's Son, God touches them, and that so we could do all kinds of things theologically in that way. But in Mark, there's this, they're terrified. Peter says, "Hey, we want to build you 3 booths," because he didn't know what to say, or they didn't know what to say. All this fear is happening, and then in their fear, or through their fear, or in the midst of their fear, God shows up. And that we spend a lot of time kind of springboarding that. And the thing is that we've all been afraid. And it might be a time to talk about that when you were afraid, and that how someone played the part of Jesus for you. The thing is that sometimes we think we have to get it all together, that we have to act all strong and mighty for God to show up. But here we get a glimmer that in our fear and when we are scared, God meets us and wraps God's arms around us, and like in the other text, reaches out and touches us and lets us know that it is okay. We will be okay. I'm with you. I'm walking with you. I've got you. You are mine. So not only is the voice, "This is my son, the beloved, listen to him," we hear the voice of God saying to us, "You are my child, the beloved, and with you I am well pleased." That idea of God in our fear finding us through our fear, or in the midst of our fear. It's not that God causes that fear, that God causes us to be afraid, but in our fear, God still and especially shows up. And that's a word of comfort that not only I think kids need to hear, but adults need to hear, because being afraid is not fun. And being afraid and thinking you're alone is especially not fun. So, all right, those are 2 springboards that I'm working with. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your partnership in this ministry. Thank you for being in my workshop. If you were there, I met so many people, and my heart continues to be full. And so, as a reminder, you are rocking it. All right, we'll see you next week. Peace.